I'm currently sitting here on a very uncomfortable chair in an empty house. I feel this situation represents how I've been feeling lately. I can't tell if I'm aggravated or depressed, confused, maybe all of them. So I'm going to be brutally honest here on this one. We all put on a show for the world, whether we're in the workplace or people making YouTube videos. But, I get up every day and I do the work. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I don't do the work. I got to admit, I'm not a go-getter type person. But I'm a blue-collar type person. And I'm a carpenter. And when things are going okay, I'm fine. Lately, things haven't been going okay. Although at the same time, things have been going phenomenal. So it's balanced itself out. And I'm going to explain that. This is definitely not a complaint, but hear me out. Because I'm sure a lot of you feel the same way. I'm at this point where it's like speak up or shut up when it comes to all of the bullshit that I'm surrounded with every day. And I'm not talking about my personal life. I'm not talking about just politics or the media. I'm talking about all of it. The way that it affects all humans. All of the collective actions we take as a species affect all the people. And what I mean by that is, it's easy for us to say, hey, well, fuck the world. I have no interest in that. I'm just going to go off and do my own thing. Well, in the modern day, we know that there's only so much you can do. The land is all taken, right? So to speak. You can't just go build a house on a piece of land and be left alone anymore. I mean, that's long since passed, and it might have been a wonderful time in history, but now the whole world runs on markets, and the whole world runs on real estate, the largest lobbying group, by the way. And I'm sitting here working on this house. This is my first house that I ever bought, the only house I've bought until now, when we're in the process of selling it, and we bought another house. And all I want to do is be able to go to work, make enough to, pay off my bills, and maybe someday retire. And that's all anybody wants. I mean, most people. There are plenty of in society that want more and more and more, and some people who don't want to be part of the system at all. I play the system because I have to be in the system. It's a requirement to get out of it, to play it, because you're born into it, whether we like it or not. So this brings me to, as far as the situation of living day to day and just doing the routine. When I go to the grocery store now, let's just say the prices are much higher. That's kind of half sarcastic. I went down to Home Depot to pick up a bunch of materials to work on my house, and oh my God, the price of shit is through the roof over the years. And that's not just current, it's not just this year or even in the last few years, it's just this ongoing barrage of bullshit from the system. Constant inflation from an incompetent government over and over and over. And all of us are just swimming in the shit. Since 2008 and long before. Back when we bailed out the biggest banks so they could give all of their, bonuses to their top CEOs. And that's just the world we live in. It's just how it is. So we, the people, have often hoped that somebody would pull us out of that. That maybe we could bring in some actor that would, I say actor kind of metaphorically, but I guess literally, we've hired two of them, Reagan as well, that would come in and on a, like a white knight on either a horse or a chariot. I guess a knight should be on a horse, probably not in a chariot. Would it be drawing a chariot? I don't know. The point is that we want somebody to come save us from ourselves. And I say that ourselves because ourselves is the whole of our country. The pit of nonsense that we're constantly immersed in. And really, when you don't hear about the government very often, that's the best time. That's when a country is doing its best, in my opinion. When they're just seamless and they move behind the scenes. In other words, that's kind of a hypothetical situation because I've never actually seen it happen. But you can't know when it is happening because we, as the people, don't understand the deeper inner complexities of how much it takes to make a society function the way that we live in the West. So, we thought that we could get a leader in that would fix these problems. And yes, I still say leader because that's how people see Trump, as a leader, not a representative or just a politician, but they really see him as a figurehead or a leader. And I'm not here to say whether that's good or bad, but I do understand that idolatry is a huge problem with believing people when they tell you anything. And I've seen this happen so often with even just, I thought of an example earlier, if a kid gets, let's just say they are abused by their priest, right? There are so many stories of kids going to their parents and telling their parents, and their parents actually either beating them or calling them liars and sending them to their room because they don't want to admit that their pastor or their priest is somehow culpable, because they'll believe the adult over the child. But deep down inside, here's the problem. They believe the child. They just can't admit to themselves that somebody that they admire so much would do something so wrong. And we've seen this countless times through history, the justification of horrific leadership, horrific abuses of power. And still, to this day, with all the information we have, we are willing to just watch it all fall apart, And I'm not, how do I define this? The term that I was going to start this video with, it's one that I heard a while back, and it was actually Steve Bannon who used it, and he said that was the basically the playbook of the second Trump administration was going to be flood the zone. And that just is exactly what it sounds like. It means create so much chaos so quickly that nobody knows what to respond to and everybody throws their hands up. And that's pretty much what's happened. It's been very successful. But behind the scenes, a lot has happened that people don't really consider the long-term repercussions of. Something that people were celebrating, for example, tariffs. All of us who understand what tariffs are, were well aware that tariffs were only going to make the American consumer pay more in the long run. So if you're trying to help the consumer, that's not going to help the prices of groceries or products at all. We know this, yet people cheered it on. It was like, you just got to believe the priest, right? And I guess maybe it's because people don't want to do any research into how things really work. But all that aside, don't even want to debate that. The issue was that these tariffs caused China to say, well, if you're going to put tariffs on our goods, we're not going to buy your soybeans. And so they stopped buying our soybeans. And now they're buying soybeans from Argentina. Now here's the kicker. If the average farmer in America right now tries to sell his soybeans, they said that I think they will get I think it's $9 a bushel, but it costs them $11 to produce it. So they're losing money. So they can't grow soybeans, and I'm sure that the government will give bailouts, well, maybe, subsidies and bailouts for that, but the point is that's all taxpayer money. Meanwhile, the government just the other day gave $20 billion to Argentina, the chainsaw guy, for their economy. Meanwhile, Argentinian soybean farmers are selling theirs to China for $12 a bushel. So we're in a crisis right now, which just gradually moves from group to group. And once that group's affected, they start to realize, oh shit, this has come to my front door. And that brings me to the point, do you speak up or shut up on political issues? And funny enough, I was going to make this video hours ago outside when it was sunny, but I was so busy painting and working, and I just couldn't stop, and I just kept thinking about it, and I turned on some random video or podcast, and it was this guy basically going through everything I had on my mind. It's one of those synchronicities. And he was like, he said how he wrestles with the idea of should I be involved in politics? He's like, I want nothing to do with this. He's like, I don't want to be involved in paying attention to all the shit that's going on and look at the headlines. But I've been told that if you're not informed, you're part of the problem. That you should be informed and you should speak your mind. But now we're living in a time where if you speak your mind, you're ridiculed by everybody who doesn't agree, instead of having an actual civil discussion. Because nobody wants to talk about facts, figures, statistics, or actual points anymore. It's a feelings battle about whose heroes are better or whose team is winning. The minute our government started seeing themselves as teams or us versus them, like really the enemy, the way that the president has said consistently for years, the Democrats are the enemy, the left is the enemy. Now it's everyone's the fucking enemy. And look, if you're a Trump fan, hopefully you're not offended by that. If you are offended by my opinion on Trump, then grow up. This isn't an insult to you, all right? You and I probably have more in common than you would ever have in common with that slimy sleazeball. If you work and you get a paycheck and you try to make a living in this country, we're on the same fucking team, okay? This is oligarchy territory. This is, a technocracy at this point. I mean, just looking at the stage during the inauguration with all the tech bros on stage, including Peter Thiel, this Palantir, if people are paying attention, I don't want to say, you gotta read 1984, but really that book has come back into my mind so much lately. The double speak, the way that language is twisted. And just this morning, I was getting ready for work and I popped on some George Carlin and he was talking about soft language. It was one of my favorite clips. I listen to it all, at least every 6 months or so, I'll see that and I'll be like, okay, I gotta watch it again. And he's talking about how it used to be toilet paper. Now it's bathroom tissue. And he talked about how back in the 20s, when soldiers would get, during World War I, soldiers would get what they'd call shell shock. And then they changed it to battle fatigue. And then it was some other syndrome. And eventually now it's post-traumatic stress disorder. It just keeps moving down the line to these softer words, softer language. Something as simple as saying, oh, he's dead. It's like, oh, he's passed away. A great discussion about that. But, okay, the point being here, it's important that we speak our minds. It's important that we be straightforward, not mince our words, and not be too sensitive. And what's happened over the last decade, and where the left lost a lot of people, was their oversensitivity to words and language. And that's where they lost, a lot of my respect. I mean, I lean left, but I'm not a Democrat. And it's just embarrassing and cringe watching them, obsess and inviting, things that the left, if you call them out on it, they'll think it's trivial. And they'll be like, oh, you shouldn't care about that. I'd be like, but your politicians are playing a game too. They're looking for the same re-election results, the same profits, and donations. How disgusting that American citizens are getting text messages from their billionaire president to get for his campaign or something. I mean, like Trump sends out these letters needing donations all the time. Sometimes it's for probably legal bills or something. I'm just shocked people are willing to give money, but people do it, And so anyway, I really need to get to the point. I'm going to ramble if I'm not. And I didn't have many notes. Really, I wanted to just talk about this whole fact that we have people walking through our streets wearing masks, not identifying themselves and arresting citizens. Now, from what I've gathered, 60% of the people arrested have no criminal record, whether they're here illegal or not. And I've had this argument with people in my personal life, people I know that are pro, what's going on. And I happen to completely disagree with the way that they're going about it. And people will say, well, that's what Trump ran on. He said he was going to get rid of illegals. I know that's what Trump ran on. That's why I didn't vote for him. That's the whole point. That's why so many people disagreed with him. But many and most people I talk to do agree with getting rid of the criminals. If you're a criminal here illegally, yes, you need to get out. But as for people and citizens and people who have lived here their whole lives, and technicalities, or going to courthouses and waiting for people to come out of the courtroom for their hearings, or going to their courtroom for their hearings, arresting them there, or what happened the other day, which is what just kind of triggered me to just have to mention and talk about this, the fact that an apartment building in Chicago, they dropped in from the fucking Black Hawk helicopters on the rooftop and mobbed it with like 300 ICE and federal police. It's insanity, because look, if you know where the criminals are, you can arrest them without kicking in every door in an entire apartment building, bringing out children in America out of their homes in zip ties, their hands zip tied, out in the cold to stand outside for 3 or 4 hours while you search the whole building. This is what happened. It's not, it's not exaggerated. That's what happened. And that's what's happening. So me living near Portland and growing up in the area, when I see a bunch of people, down there dancing in inflatable costumes, my oldest son was actually passing through, and he just stopped by last night. He said it's just a few people hanging out, and that's what it has been. Yet we've watched like them wearing these inflatable frog costumes, and I watched one of the cops just walk up and just spray it in the intake vent to the costume. And I did see an interview with the kid talking about it. He's like, yeah, it smelled a little minty for a minute, but then I just went on with my thing. It was pretty funny, but he took it pretty lightly, but he was explaining why he's out there. And I thought, for all the people that like to make fun of protesters and say protesting is pointless, it has no purpose. Your ancestors would be so embarrassed to hear you say that. That's how I feel, no offense. But for all the people who say protesting is pointless, you shouldn't speak up like that, and usually people will kind of slip to saying, well, you shouldn't block traffic, or, you shouldn't burn things or destroy things. But, even MLK, he said he was against violence, but he said the riot is the voice of the unheard. So if you protest legally and you're still not getting a response, well, sometimes people do get violent, but here's the thing, these protests haven't got violent. Yet they're sending in the National Guard. And since they refused to send in theirs, I believe in Chicago, Texas is now sending their National Guard, or is already there, I guess, waiting. There's all these judges and injunctions, but look at how much money this is costing the country for no fucking purpose. I made a video the other day on my other channel where I explained, I spent a couple hours, I did as much research as I could on immigration. How many immigrants are in the country? How much does it cost the country? How much do they pay in that they don't get back? How much do they contribute to the local economies versus how much they send home? The numbers I came up with are, something like, 30, maybe, I'd say it's much less, but just throw another 10 billion, say $30 billion a year it costs American taxpayers. And then I looked at the budget for ICE for 4 years, and it was 170 billion. You tell me how the math adds up. Because the reality is you can't accomplish the goals they want to accomplish by using these methods without completely stepping on the Constitution. And freedom of speech seems to be infringed as well. People speaking up and saying they disagree with what Israel was doing. I mean, that has really failed. The whole anti-Semitic thing, even a couple of years ago, I was just like so disgusted by how they played the victim all the time, and like they're always the victim in Israel. And I was like, if people just knew that Zionism wasn't the same as Judaism. Very simple concept to understand. I tried to explain this to people, and around my personal life, nobody seemed to care or understand. All they know is, oh, it's okay to blow up a school or a hospital because Hamas has tunnel. And now videos have come out saying that was AI generated. Israel was putting out AI generated videos showing Hamas tunnels that never existed. Why do you think they've never shown like close-up excavations or anything? Because the biggest fucking blanket of bullshit is being pulled over people's eyes right now. It's been so bad for so long, but now it's reached a crescendo where it's like, if people don't speak up that are aware of these things, as much as we try to ignore it, just live our lives, it's just going to come for us, because that's how it's always worked. And people try to deny this idea that authoritarianism can creep in overnight. Well, bullshit. You should look at how it works, because I'm not even afraid of Trump. I want to make this clear. He's an aging 80-year-old, man that's losing his mind probably in the long run. But the rest of the people around him, the Stephen Millers, the J.D. Vances, it's the swamp, okay? Some of the worst of the worst. Of course, people would not agree with that, but I believe firmly that officers should identify themselves, because having a masked force on the streets only invites copycats, which there have been several cases this week of people being arrested imitating ICE agents. How hard is it to put on a vest that says ICE and put a mask and go harass Mexicans? How many people will do it? Probably not many. But the fact is, we have laws to identify yourself for a reason. You see, that's why we have badges. And behind the scenes, they've been firing all of the overseers and watchdogs from all the different groups. Just the little things. The guy who came out with the jobs report. It's like, oh, I don't agree with what he's saying, so therefore you're fired. Put somebody in there that's going to give me the numbers I want. People say, no. These people just aren't doing their jobs. Bullshit. You don't know if they're doing their jobs. I think most people want to do their jobs and do them well. I don't think anybody's going to fudge the job numbers as science. A guy who researches and studies and does this for a living. I don't think he's going to, lie about the numbers just because he doesn't like the president. Could he? Sure. But look around. What are people saying? And while I'm on kind of a little tirade here, remember, this is the president that said he was going to end wars, and everybody's celebrating today that he created this big peace plan for the Middle East. I mean, I've been accused of being quite cynical or just having TDS because I say bullshit, it's not a peace plan. They've destroyed 83% of the buildings in the entire strip of Gaza. Meanwhile, they've been cleansing the West Bank while nobody's paying attention. The settlers over there. But this isn't a peace plan when you have Tony Blair and Trump in charge. It really is kind of the hotel plan. They really want to develop it. As I said at the beginning, the real estate lobby is the biggest. It may sound like conspiracy bullshit, but you can look into it yourself. But here's the thing, this is all being televised, these vindictive prosecutions like Comey, holding up financial recovery, the ability for our country to actually heal from the crisis that we've been in for so long, which will put us into ultimately a recession, and that's why it's irritating. And this idea of extrajudicial murder being normalized, today, there were 2 more boats that were blown up off the coast of Venezuela. I've seen all of the videos of the 6 boats so far that we know of that have been blown up by, I believe, Tomahawk missiles. I don't remember how many tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars does each one of those Tomahawk missiles cost versus sending a guy out to see if they're actually drug traffickers. Because I'm not denying that there's people off the coast of Venezuela in boats that probably have cocaine. But this was a small speedboat just sitting there off the coast of Venezuela. You know how far Venezuela is from the US, right? So if they are narco traffickers, whatever you want to call them, it's important that we follow the same laws that we always have, such as identifying them and showing us who they were. But that doesn't matter anymore. People don't care. People are willing to let other people die because it makes them feel a little bit safer. And I just will not stand by it. I cannot. It goes against all my values. 6 boats, 33 people dead, just off the shore of a country that's in South America. Absolutely no evidence that they were coming to our shores. If you knew that, you could easily track them to our shores and then blow them up. That would be a show of force. That would make more sense. But televising the whole thing tells me that they're trying to cause fear. And This, of course, is the pretense for going into Venezuela, which I'm guaranteeing within the next year we're going to have troops in Venezuela. And we're probably going to go back and bomb Iran again because our country just can't leave everybody else the fuck alone and get back to taking care of Americans, because all of us really wanted America first. I argued for Trump last year to all the people who were saying he was going to destroy the country. I'm like, dude, don't overreact. I still think they were overreacting in some ways, because some people were saying elections were over, the whole country was destroyed. It's like, it's not this one guy that's going to destroy the country. He's just going to turn a few gears and put a couple wrenches in a few gears, rather, and hopefully we can remove them in time before the whole damn thing blows up. Because we are headed downhill pretty fast. People don't understand how the economy even runs. I mean, we're not economists, but we do understand what fiat currency is. We do understand what printing money does, don't we? And when you have trillions in debt, but you have trillions missing from the Pentagon, and all of your money's being sucked up by black ops and budgets that go to these other guys, it makes you wonder, when do the Americans get our piece? When can the average worker or a guy like myself get, like, healthcare, affordable healthcare? And what I feel like society right now has been reactionary and not revolutionary. And revolutionary is what we need. And that's my opinion. Is the answer getting some guy like Gavin Newsom in office? Hell no. We need something different. We need something new. Perhaps even a different system of presidential power. Maybe we should go to ranked choice voting. I don't know what the answer is. But I do know what we're doing now isn't working. And if people are going to continue fighting over which side cares about them more, I without understanding each other, really understanding where we're coming from, the frustration, we won't get anything done. But more than that, if the economy continues to tank and nobody can afford anything, nobody's going to give a shit about any politician. I'm saying if the Americans get to a certain point, there's going to be a snap. I don't know how that will end up, but I just want to leave you with two quotes for all the folks who, maybe are, Trump fans and think that I was just dissing him. I wasn't. He's just part of the problem. And he was a Democrat when I was younger. So it's not like, that people change, they have different opinions, but really he was going with whatever party was going to give him the power. Because I firmly believe he just wanted the power and the control, because he had a rough childhood. His dad was very demanding and a total dick to him and his brother. And that affected him heavily. And now he can't take criticism. He's always got to go out and attack anybody who says anything about him. It's the most extreme form of insecurity is always having to defend yourself against perceived enemies that may not even exist. So there were two quotes I wanted to share. The first one, I believe he said a few years back, and he said when he was at one of his campaign rallies, he said, "I don't care about you. I just want your vote." And the other one that stuck with me was, "I love the poorly educated. We're the smartest people. We're the most loyal people." And the reason I like that one is because a lot of people quote that and they'll say, "Oh, I love the poorly educated." And they'll make fun of that as if, he likes poorly educated because he's poorly educated, which is true, but I don't make fun of people because they're poorly educated. I feel sorry for them. Doesn't matter, obviously. He's rich and he's got what he wants. Anybody can take the time to learn more about the world and reality if they want to, but not everybody does. But it was the part where he says, "We're the smartest people, we're the most loyal people." I don't think that the poorly educated are the smartest people, first off, but I do believe that loyalty, that angle of it is true. And I believe that what we're seeing right now is an ultimate loyalty test from person to person, not even just politician to politician like it used to be. They've managed to push that out into society to convince you, if you're a conservative, for example, that I'm the problem because I think differently than you. And that's wrong thinking. And that's my opinion, and I stand by it firmly. There has been actually quite an open debate lately about about open debate, actually. Whether or not it's worth it to what they call platforming somebody you disagree with, or somebody whose views that you completely disagree with. Like, if it's something that you're not sure about, that's one thing, like a policy issue. But if like this person's saying, oh, we should just, completely wipe out everybody from these races or something, I mean, you're obviously not going to waste your time having a discussion with this person saying, well, let me see, where do your ideas come from? It's like, no, this is just a genocidal maniac, And there's probably a few of them out there. I would say that there is one particular population that thinks that they are God's chosen people and that everybody else is just garbage to them. And for some reason, my country supports them. The only thing I thought that Trump might do is get us out from under the thumb of that country in the Middle East that we are supposedly allied with, which has done horrendous things to the U.S. So with all that said, my rant's over. I've done enough complaining about politics. I'm going to go home, get some dinner, and go to bed. Much love to you all. Take care of each other. I'll see you next time.